let's talk about multiplying polynomials. There's a couple different techniques that you can use to multiply, and I'll go over both of them in this video. The first is in a vertical format, and the second is in a horizontal format. So the first one I'll do is this one. When you're multiplying a binomial by a binomial, that just means two terms by two terms, a lot of people use the FOIL method, and that's an acronym standing for first, outside, inner, last. But the thing I don't like about the FOIL method is that it only works for a binomial times a binomial. So what I'm going to do instead is multiply just thinking about distribution. When we're multiplying two polynomials together, we're saying I want to multiply everything in that first parentheses by everything in the second parentheses. So let me just start with the 3x and multiply that to everything in the other parentheses, and then I'll go to the -1 and do the same thing. So I start with the 3x, and I'm going to multiply that to the x and to the +2. 3x times x is going to be 3x squared. 3x times +2 gives me +6x. Then I move on to the -1, and I multiply that to everything in the other parentheses. -1 to x is -1x. -1 times 2 is -2. From here, we just combine like terms, and then we're done. So I have two like terms in the middle. When I combine those, I will have a +5x. So my final polynomial is 3x squared plus 5x minus 2. And that is how I would multiply in a horizontal format. If you would rather multiply in a vertical format, this is what it would look like. I'll go ahead and line these up vertically. So I've got 3x minus 1 times x and a +2. And I'm just going to multiply as if these were two numbers. So I'm going to take my 2 and multiply it to my 1, and then I'm going to take my 2 and multiply it to my 3x. So 2 times -1 is -2. 2 times +3x is going to be 6x. And I just write it right below like I would normally. Then I move on to my x, and I'm going to multiply that to the -1, and then x to the +3x. Now, since we're in that second position with this x, I skipped over the +2 position. I'm going to leave a space here, and I'll start writing my product down below that 6x. So when I multiply x times -1, I get -1x, and then x times 3x gives me 3x squared. So the nice thing about this is all your like terms should line up nicely, and then when we go add down, everything's already lined up. So -2 is not above anything, so I just add that to 0 and I get -2. 6x and -1x give me 5x, and that's positive, and then 3x squared doesn't add with anything, so I just leave it 3x squared. So this would be your polynomial, which is the same thing we got when we did the horizontal method. So either way is good. Okay, let's do one more. Now this one's a 3 by 3. So if you are doing the FOIL method, it's not going to work here. There's too many terms. So I'm going to start doing the horizontal method. I distribute my x squared, the first term, to x to the third, -3x, and +1. When I multiply x's, I add the exponent, so I get x to the fifth. X squared times -3x is -3x to the third. X squared times +1 is +1x squared. And now I move on and I distribute my +2. +2x times x to the third gives me +2x to the fourth. +2 times -3 is -6x squared. +2x times +1 is +2x. And then I distribute my -5. -5x times x to the third is -5x to the third. -5 times -3x is going to give me +15x, and -5 times 1 is -5. And now I just combine my like terms, starting with your highest exponent going down to the lowest. So I see my highest exponent is x to the fifth. There's nothing else to combine that with, so that's the only one, and I cross it out to represent that I've already used it. I move down to x to the fourth, and I see an x to the fourth here. There's nothing to combine it with, so I just bring it down and cross it out. My x to the thirds, I've got -3 and -5. When I combine those, I get -8, and I keep the exponent. Cross them out. Then my x squareds, I've got positive 1 and negative 6. When I combine those, I get negative 5, and I keep the exponent. And then my linear terms, my x terms, I've got positive 2 and positive 15, which give me positive 17x. And then I cross them out, and the only thing not crossed out is my minus 5. So this would be the product of the two polynomials. If you prefer a vertical method, I'll go ahead and do that now. So I multiply starting at the bottom right, and I'm going to go up to that top row and all the way to the left. So the first thing I do is 1 times negative 5, which is negative 5. Then I go 1 times positive 2x, which gives me positive 2x. And I am putting the pluses in front because we're building a polynomial. Then positive 1 and x squared gives me positive x squared. I don't need the plus because there's nothing that's going to come to the left of that. I move on to my negative 3x, and I'm going to start with my product down below that 2x. So we're going to line it up. Negative 3x times negative 5 is going to be positive 15x. Negative 3x and positive 2 give me negative 6x squared. And then I have negative 3 to my x squared, which would give me negative 3x to the third. I move on to my x to the third. I'm actually going to line that up in the x to the third column, so it'll be beneath that negative 3x to the third. So x to the third to negative 5 gives me negative 5x to the third. Let me move this over a tad. Then I move on, x to the third times positive 2x gives me positive 2x to the fourth. And then my last is x to the third and x squared, which gives me 1x to the fifth. And then we just combine like terms, and everything's lined up, so we just need to add vertically. X to the fifth plus 2x to the fourth. Negative 3 and negative 5 give me negative 8x to the third minus 5x squared plus 17x minus 5. And this is my final polynomial. So that's a couple examples of multiplying polynomials both horizontally and vertically. I hope that helped. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.